Hello again. This is Dr. Garrett Castleberry, our instructor for the course for this public speaking experience. And yes, I know it sounds like we're doing public speaking, but yet we're doing it in an online space. And that's okay, because guess what? People communicate online all the time. And unless you've been hiding under a rock, which, by the way, we hope you've been hiding under a rock lately. But in case you've been hiding under a rock without a Wi-Fi signal, right? People are communicating now, right now, this minute, more than ever. All right. We're staying connected, in fact, by our online presence. So what a meta opportunity then for us to think about and engage and practice our communication skills in an online space. All right. So brilliant. Anyway, I'm going to be coming to you all each week with little mini lectures. And this is an opportunity for me to talk about key concepts from the course, from the textbook, right? Content we would discuss and discover together in a classroom setting, and now we're simply in an asynchronous kind of online setting, and that's okay. All right, we're going to find the ways around that. We're going to find ways to benefit in this unique setting and circumstance. Okay, so one of the things we can do right off the bat is talk about that basic communication process. All right, and depending on the book or textbook, various public speaking books give us this basic concept in different ways. Hang on, let me grab. I see it just out of arm's length here. Different ways. I will hold up a copy of the traditional textbook that we're using here, right? The Intro to Public Speaking, right? Just like this. It's a spiral notebook. But let me tell you all something else. If I can reach back here. Oh, my secret pile of books. It's also the exact same course content from this book, from the iSpeak, okay? So here's a way that we're going to break down these barriers, kind of tackle some of these contents. I have lecture content, or rather, I should say, like digital notes, PowerPoints, and so on that draw specifically from these texts. I'll do my best to try to share that with you efficiently, in a timely manner, allow that to kind of lead us so that we can simplify practices such as getting ready for at least one exam, and then the instance of the second exam that we're budgeted for or booked for. I'm exploring options here, right? So I want you to stay faithful, stay on top of these things, and we're definitely looking for ways to capitalize on alternative educational experiences. That's called a teaser, all right? So back to the notes here. I want to talk about, just briefly, the communication process, all right? That's 2 words, communication process. But basically, this is the essence of how all communication works. It's also referred to as a communication exchange, all right? And so if we think about the communication exchange, I think about the letter S, right? And I don't know if this is going to show backwards or not, but when we're talking about communication exchange, we have our sender, right? You think about a sender, right? And many of you are using the internet right now to ask someone to send you something, right? Whether it's something in the mail or some form, right? So senders send things, right? And they send those to receiver, okay? So you can kind of think about it in terms of an S and an R, sender, receiver. And when someone's communicating with you, you're the receiver. When you're communicating an idea, expression, a thought, articulate out loud, you are the sender. But we send and receive all the time. And that thing that we're sending is what we call a message, right? And this makes sense to us when you think about common colloquial terms we use every single day. You send a text message, right? You send an email message. And so all of these are a process of sending and receiving. Of course, messages travel along this little invisible line, right? For purposes of understanding it, we can see it and we can identify it as, how many guesses? A channel, all right? And this makes sense to us, especially when talking about communication, because think about it in the context of mass communication, right? When I talk about mass communication, we think of maybe radio or television, something like that, in which, whether you're in the car or in the comfort of your home or wherever, you have the opportunity. If you don't like the message, you change what? You change the channel. You change the message that you're receiving. And so we're senders, and we send messages along channels to a receiver. And this is every time we express communication with one another. But life's not perfect that way, is it? It doesn't stop there, does it? No, it doesn't. So not only do we receive these messages, but do we always receive them exactly how they were intended from the sender? And let's think for a minute. Let's think about the power of text messaging on the phone, or maybe an email or something like that, or maybe a distance. You ever talk to a grandparent that's hard of hearing? Okay, and did you have to resend that message, or did you ever have to send that message in a different way? You ever think about if you send a message the wrong way at work, you're going to get fired, right? This is because it's an imperfect process. Not only how we communicate, but what we say in communication. So, sender sends a message to a receiver along a channel, but life's not that simple, okay? So, the receiver kind of decodes it, and you know what? It gets complicated, right? So one thing we do all create is a response, yeah? We send responses back to those senders because you don't just sit there stoically when you receive something. You kind of process it, right? You think about a computer processing. People, we're computers. We process. And we don't always process correctly in line with the message we received. So things can get in the way. All right, here comes the lightning bolt. All right, this is a terrible lightning bolt, but we're going to run with it. So sometimes something gets in the way of that message, right? And confuses us, results in what we call miscommunication. And so when something gets in the way, we're talking about another term that comes right out of our texts. Interference, all right? Interference. You think about refs throwing flag for pass interference, right? The defender got in the way of the primary communication, which was the ball moving from, let's say, the quarterback to wide receiver or whatever, okay? Interference. Other textbooks have a different term that's exactly like interference. It's called noise, all right? Noise is something we're each familiar with. We've encountered noise in various kinds, but not all noise is the same, right? For example, at the beginning of this message, and I was putting some information together, I have a nice sort of window to the neighborhood here. Now that I'm quarantined at home, and had some neighborhood folks strolling by the window, and they almost seemed to be peering in. It was a distraction. It was what we refer to as external noise. Okay, now external noise could be visual, right? It could be auditory. On the other side of my house, back behind, they're erecting houses right now. There's construction going on. All right, and you think about construction. What do you think about? Noise, right? Audio noise. The sounds of hammering, the jackhammer at larger construction projects, and so on. So noise takes on many forms. It can be external. It can be either visual noise or kind of audio, right? But noise or interference can also be internal. Okay, internal noise might be the thoughts that kind of disconnect or keep us from staying attentive to the message. Hey, you ever you can raise your hand It's okay. Ever buy a textbook for a general ed course you're not interested in? And don't say this one. And you can't get through the first page. You keep starting over, and it's just not clicking. It's just not connecting. And maybe other things are getting in the way of that, right? This is internal noise. Whether something's on your mind, it's distracting. Hey, it's hard to sit down and organize my thoughts because I was online earlier and the world is full of kind of calamity and chaos right now. Well, that's a form of external noise, but I'm internally processing it, right? Internally, in my head, my cognitive thoughts, it's creating distraction, okay? But there's also internal noise that could be, so that example would be physiological. Psychological noise, right? Psychological. It's psychologically happening, it kind of cognitive thoughts and distractions in that form. There's also physiological internal noise, all right? I know we're getting in the weeds here, but that other kind of internal noise could be a physical distraction. Okay, for example, I'm someone that wears glasses. I don't have contacts, I wear glasses. But I happen to have them off right now, and as a result, vision's a little bit blurry, all right? So that could be creating noise. I have blue eyes. My blue eyes, they're quite sensitive to natural light, to sunlight. And wouldn't you know it, we finally have a clear sunny day. There's just a little bit too much sunlight coming through, all right? And so suddenly I can't process as much information as well because I'm distracted by how much I really just want to put some sunglasses on, okay? That's, so we're seeing how noise or interference can be internal in a couple of ways and external in a couple of ways. All right. But ultimately, our goal as communicators is to send messages to a receiver and for it to be as accurate as possible. But we don't just sit like bumps on a log, as country folk like to say, and just straight up receive information. And some people, right? Maybe people we know sit and kind of consume certain types of cable news that way, right? And it doesn't impact them in the least bit, right? They just receive. Wrong, right? They go nuts, and then they go crazy online and share a bunch of memes and stuff, right? Well, that's their reaction to it. They're reacting, even if they're not speaking back to the live broadcasters. They're reacting to the information that's being presented, and it brings home the final aspect of the communication process that we want to understand, and that is that this process of sending and receiving information doesn't happen in a silo. In fact, we are constantly sending and receiving information. It's a simultaneous exchange, all right? So sender sends a message to a receiver. The message travels along the channel. We decode that encoded message, right? The message is encoded initially. We decode it, and then we create a response. Now, our either interpretation of the message or that response itself can be broken by what we refer to as interference or noise, which can be external or internal, all right? But ultimately, we are still communicating, and it is a back and forth, a give and a take that symbolizes the simultaneous exchange of information. And even if you say to yourself, okay, I receive messages, it doesn't mean I always talk back, let alone clap back. I don't talk back when I receive that message. I'm very dutiful. I follow. Well, even our nonverbal communication is a form of relaying that we understand, that we're listening, that we agree, right? Oh, I disagree. I'm hesitant about what you said. Okay. So nonverbal communication. In fact, hey, we don't have opportunity for a pop quiz here, but I would suggest in a classroom setting, what do we do more of, the average human being? Communicate through verbal messages or communicate through non-verbal messages? And as I gave you just a second to think about it, the correct answer to this rhetorical question is non-verbal communication. And if we think about it, most of our communication each and every day is non-verbal. And even more so in an age where we're communicating online through cellular devices, whether it's computers, laptops, right? Smartphones, and so on. Even smartwatches now, and so on. All of this, this type of information sharing is digital. It is computer mediated communication. So it is not traditional verbal communication. So remember, most of our communication does in fact take place on the nonverbal side of things. And also keep in mind that our communication is a simultaneous exchange of sending and receiving information. Hey, that went a little longer than we wanted, but it's a big, important process to understand. Super excited to talk to you all about the communication process, and definitely think about that. You can practice drawing it for yourself and read about it in the text, and I'll be back with more information in the weeks to come. Thank you for listening.